Welcome to the Directors Club podcast, your go-to resource for child care center owners and directors seeking success at their centers. Each week, we dive into the world of child care management, sharing valuable tips, tools, resources, and strategies to help you build enrollment, retain top teachers, and streamline your operations. With a casual and lighthearted approach, we tackle the challenges you face from staffing and enrollment to business skills and time management. Join us as we unlock the secrets to creating a thriving child care center. Let's laugh, learn, and grow together. This is the Directors Club podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Directors Club podcast. It's Noelle. And today I want to dive into the topic that's crucial for any childcare center leader. And one of my favorite topics, setting boundaries and preserving healthy working relationships. Running a childcare center is incredibly rewarding, but it's also demanding. From managing staff and interacting with parents to ensuring the highest quality of care, our plates are always full. And in such a close-knit, hands-on environment, boundaries can be easily blurred. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the constant interruptions, I'm raising my hand right now in case you can't see it, from staff, or found yourself stepping into roles that belong to somebody else? Or maybe you've even noticed that your team is relying on you to make decisions that you know they can make on their own. These are all signs that boundaries may need to be reestablished in your childcare center. Today I'm going to explore why setting boundaries are important and some strategies to do it effectively in the childcare setting. And then I want to discuss boundaries that can lead to healthier, more productive work relationships. And I'm going to share a few personal stories along the way from my experience in leading our center to help illustrate how you can put these ideas into practice. So let's start by talking about boundaries, what they mean in the context of our center. Boundaries are an invisible line that define where your responsibilities end and someone else's begins. They're about protecting your time, energy, and ladies, mental well-being, while ensuring that everyone on your team knows their roles and responsibilities. And in childcare centers, where the work is so personal and the stakes are so high, boundaries can easily become blurred. For instance, staff might come to you with every little issue, and the reason why I started the Directors Club 14 years ago, even when you know that they're fully capable of solving the problem on their own. Or you might find yourself stepping in to cover shifts or handle tasks because it's just easier than delegating. When boundaries aren't clear, it can lead to a host of problems. For one, it can cause stress and burnout for both you and your team. When everyone is constantly overstepping their roles, it creates confusion and frustration. And it ultimately affects the quality of the care that you provide the children. That's why it's so important to set and maintain these clear boundaries. Not only do they perfect your well-being, but they also help create a more structured, efficient, and harmonious work environment. And in the world of childcare, where every day is filled with unexpected challenges, having these boundaries in place can make all the difference. Now that we understand the importance of these boundaries, let's talk about how to set them effectively within the center. This is where the rubber meets the road. First, let's discuss roles and responsibilities. One of the most common boundary issues in childcare is when staff aren't clear what their roles are or their responsibilities versus what yours are as the director. For example, if you find that teachers are constantly coming to you with minor classroom issues, it just might be time to revisit whose role is what. At your next staff meeting, make sure that everyone knows who's responsible for what. Let's say you're constantly getting interrupted with behavior issues or minor things in the classroom that you know they can handle. Talk about it. At your next staff meeting, talk about that. Every time you have a behavior issue, what are the steps we're going to go through? We're going to do A. First, we're going to offer like a quiet corner maybe. Then second, we're going to try redirection. And then third, we're going to do this. And then until you get to the fourth or fifth, you're not calling the office yet. And give them those steps and type it up and develop it with them so that they see that these minor things they come to you for, and I'm not saying the excessive bad behaviors, but I am talking about the behaviors that you know that they can redirect and move forward with. Think about ways you can do that at your next staff meeting. Next, let's talk about communication boundaries. As a director, you are likely bombarded with questions and requests all day from the parents and the staff and even the kids. And it's easy to feel like you've been available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But that isn't sustainable. I want you to set clear expectations for when and how staff should communicate with you. For instance, you can establish specific hours in the office that you are not available. I teach this in one of my courses that a lot of you have taken, is setting those boundaries where, like, from 10 to 11, you're not available. And then again, from 1 to 2, you're not available. Giving yourself 2 hours a day that you can get things done. Another thing that I think is super important for you to set boundaries with is the calling out. We have a policy that is determined by whoever's responsible for calling out, getting those phone calls. For me, I'm not up at 10 o'clock at night. I do not want to get texts after 9. That's my personal boundary. But I'm up at 5 a.m. If you want to text me at 5, I'm free. So set those boundaries. What time can they text you till? And what time can they text you starting on the beginning of the day? And add those time restraints to your policies. And when you meet with your team and you share this with them, hand them a copy of it, or if you do digital, hand them a digital copy of your policy. Note the time frames. And when they text you during those time frames, don't respond. Call them in the office the next time that they're in and review the policy with them. Have them re-sign off on it. Put it in their employee file. So I'm going to put this in your file just to make sure that we both remember that you do not text me at 2 a.m. or I'm going to start calling you at 2 a.m. That would be passive aggressive. So we're not going to do that. But don't we just want to sometimes? And then let's not forget about work-life balance. In a childcare setting, it's easy to let work spill over into your personal life. But if you don't protect your time outside of work, you'll quickly burn out. I want you to set some boundaries around your work hours and encourage your team to do the same. Make it clear that barring any emergencies, you're not available on the weekends or at certain times at night. This not only helps you recharge, but also sets a positive example for your team. When setting boundaries, it's so important to communicate them in a way that's firm but fair. Put it in writing and in all your manuals. Train on it at your staff meetings, right? You don't want to come across as rigid and unapproachable, but instead frame it as a way to ensure that you can work more effectively and enjoy a better work-life balance. All right, now let's shift gears and talk about how setting boundaries actually helps maintain healthy work relationships within your center. One of the biggest benefits of clear boundaries is that they build trust. When your team knows what to expect from you and what you expect from them, it creates a sense of security. They know where the lines are and can operate with them confidently. But what happens when those boundaries are crossed? When a teacher keeps coming to you for approval on every single decision in the classroom, even though you've empowered them to make those decisions on their own? This is where micromanagement can sneak in. And it's something we all need to avoid. Instead of micromanaging and continuously answering those questions for that person, focus on empowering her. Give them the autonomy to make decisions within their role. For example, if a teacher is responsible for planning the curriculum, trust them to do it. Offer guidance and support when needed, but don't hover over it. This not only helps them grow professionally, but also frees them up to focus on the broader picture. This not only helps them grow professionally, but it also frees your time to focus on the broader aspects of running the center. Conflict is inevitable when setting boundaries, or if you're resetting them, which is a good thing to do after this podcast. But how do you handle it when it makes all the difference? When a boundary is crossed, address it directly but kindly. Explain why the boundary is important and how it benefits both of you and the employee. For example, if a staff member continuously interrupts you during that 1 hour of time that you are working, if you've set aside, have a conversation about respecting office hours and suggesting alternative ways they can get support. It's a great way to build leaders inside your center by saying, if you really can't answer the question without me for the next hour, go see the lead teacher in preschool. She's going to cover for me. And then you can begin to support those leaders and build those leadership skills. But we do not want to direct that person to constantly go to her and break those boundaries. The next thing is regular check-ins can also maintain these boundaries in relationships. Schedule some time to meet with each of your teachers individually or as a group and discuss how things are going. It's a great way to reinforce boundaries and address any issues they have before they become bigger problems. And remember, at a childcare where emotions can run high and days are often unpredictable, maintaining these boundaries helps ensure that everyone can do their best without feeling so overwhelmed. How do all these boundaries and relationship strategies come together to create a positive work environment at your center? When you set clear boundaries, it reduces confusion and conflict, which in turn makes for a more pleasant work environment. Your staff knows what to expect of them, they feel trusted, and they're more likely to take initiative. This leads to higher job satisfaction, better teamwork, and ultimately a higher quality of care for children. A positive work environment is also one that everyone feels respected and valued. And when boundaries are respected, it shows that you value your team's time and contributions, and they in turn are more likely to respect your time as a leader. It's also important to remember that as a leader, you set the tone for the entire workplace. If you respect your own boundaries and those of your staff, it sets a standard for everyone else. Imagine if you gave a teacher an hour of plan time, and during that hour, you interrupted her constantly, asking her questions, showing her things, asking where things are. By the end of that hour, she's not going to get a lot of things done, right? And they'd see that. Just think of your time. Reserve a few hours during the day for yourself to get your plan time done. Super important. I want you to encourage open communication and make it clear that you're there to support your team while also respecting those boundaries that we've set. And creating a positive work environment isn't just about what happens during the work hours either. It's about encouraging a healthy work-life balance. And when your staff feel supported in this way, they're more likely to be happy, productive, and committed to the center. When we're responsible not only for our staff, but also for the well-being of the children in our care, maintaining that positive environment is key to everyone's success. So let's recap what we just talked about. We've talked about the importance of setting boundaries in a childcare center, shared strategies for doing so effectively, and explored how these boundaries can help maintain healthy work relationships. We've also touched on a few different practices to contribute to creating a positive work environment. And as you reflect on today's episode, I encourage you to think about your own center. Are there areas where boundaries could be clearer? Are there relationships that could benefit from a bit more structure? Take some time to identify one or two where you can set or reinforce boundaries and see how it impacts your work and your team's dynamic. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you just with this one thought. Boundaries aren't about saying no. They're about creating a space where everyone can say yes to their roles, to their responsibilities, and to the work-life balance we all need and thrive. Thanks for joining me today on the podcast. And if you found this helpful, I would love it for you to share it with someone in your world that is leading a childcare center. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for listening, and I'll chat with you soon. Bye, everybody.